Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Right from Kickoff. I'll be your host, William Bayless, and joining me as always, before we go into the international break, is Joe. How you doing, Joe?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Obviously, some really juicy games again. Always. Obviously, we've missed a couple of weeks. There's a lot to talk about. But yeah, it's going to be good to talk about today, and there's some real good games.
Yes, there really is. And before we get started, make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all of which the links are down below in the comment section. So go and have a look at that. And yeah, make sure you subscribe and like the video because it really helps us out, doesn't it, Joe?
It does, yeah, it does, and just gets us a bit of a following.
Yeah, you love to see it. Right. Let's start off with the first game of the last weekend. That's Man United Everton. Now, Joe, before you get into it, because I know there's so many talking points in this game, but let's talk it through. So, first of all, Martial scored in the 43rd minute. You could say it was a bit against the run of play. Everton had some really, really good chances in this game, and I feel like they were unlucky not to win it. Uh, Everton then equalised through Townsend during the Swiss celebration in front of Ronaldo, and I think that was like a bit of like an iconic moment. I think it'll go down in Everton folklore. To be fair, don't you, Joe? And then at
Yeah,
the end, uh, Everton went through on goal. He squared it across. He scored, but it was just offside. Now, do you think he should have shot in that situation? Do you think passing was the right option?
Passing wasn't the right option, was it? Because obviously he was offside. So I think to be honest, Davis, because obviously it was Davis to I think Yuri Mina, wasn't it? Because Yuri Mina
Yeah,
put it into the back of the net before it was pronounced offside. It was a bit of a weird scenario because I think most fans, including the commentators, knew it was offside. So even when Yuri Mina went to celebrate, the celebrations were muted because I think even in the back of his head, he was kind of thinking it was offside. I think Davis should have shot because it wasn't like he was at a decent angle to get a good shot off. He was through on goal. He could have gone across the keeper, could have gone near post. He was just off to the right of the goal as we saw it. So I think realistically he should have taken the shot, but it is what it is. But Everton, like you said, unlucky to lose this game. But I want to touch upon Man United. But if you want to carry on with anything.
Uh, yeah, I just want to say, obviously, the big news before the game was that Ronaldo was not starting the game. He came on at the end, like towards the end of the game, but then after the full time whistle, he didn't shake anyone's hand. He went straight down the tunnel. He was not a happy boy, was he, Joe? I just wanted to get your views on that.
Well, I think it's a bit of a weird one for Ronaldo because the thing is, Ollie came out and Ollie has been smiling. They lost at Villa. He was smiling after the game, smiling after the game of this one. And I think, to be honest, if I'm a Man United fan, bear in mind that Man United, obviously, big global club, they want trophies and stuff. I'm starting to get to the point where I don't think Ollie's the man to take them forward. As a neutral, as much as we're kind of you know, other fans are kind of laughing and joking at Man United's expense. I think you can quite clearly see that Ollie's out of his depth. Um, Team selection for me completely off. Martial, he's been I say hot and cold. He's been mostly cold. Obviously scored, good for him. But I just don't understand why Ronaldo's on the bench. I also don't really understand why Sancho's on the bench because when he did come on, he made an impact. And I just feel like with the squad that United have got, I think a lot of United fans have got a mate, like I keep saying, who's a big United fan, goes to the games and stuff. A lot of the time, season ticket holder, and he says to me that it just with this team that Ollie's got, you'd expect under a kind of more experienced manager, you'd expect them to be challenging more than they are, and they keep dropping point. I mean, losing to Villa, Villa are a good side. I'm not disputing that, but let's be honest, at home United should be beating them, and realistically, Everton have had a great start, and again, under Rafa Benitez are playing very, very well. So again, no disrespect to Everton, these are good results for Villa and Everton, but United should be taking more than a point from both those games at home. And I think that's where United fans are getting annoyed with him, and I can't see him lasting for much longer because they need to get someone in, I think, who's got winning pedigree, because Ollie hasn't got that. He's not won a trophy since he's been there. His big opportunity was obviously Europa League last season, and he failed to take it, obviously, with Villarreal winning the trophy on penalties. So I really do feel like Ollie's number is being marked, and I think a lot of his influence is coming from ex-pros who are in and around the club, who are kind of singing his praises because they used to be his ex-teammate and they like him.
Although having said that, Sir Alex after the game was heard talking to someone who was recorded saying that you have to be starting your best players. Now, Ronaldo didn't start the game. Neither did Sancho, like you touched upon before. Do you think, really, we both agree that they should have started Ronaldo? Like, it's an international break coming up, you know? I know yeah.
I can't. I mean, he said that obviously. Ollie said after the game, and obviously in his pre-match interview was like, obviously he's not a spring chicken anymore. This, that, and the other. But I can't see that being the conversation with Ronaldo, where Ronaldo is just going to sit back and take it. Obviously, we've seen his reaction after full time. I don't think he'll have wanted to be brought in to be playing at the end of the day. You've seen what condition he's in. I understand he's 36, but we're talking about a supreme goal scorer who can get you a goal at any point. I mean, he saved them in midweek against Villarreal in the Champions League last 95 minutes, plus added time and stuff. So I really didn't get that. That for me was a kind of a head scratcher. Obviously we don't know the conversations going off between the players, but you have to be starting your best players. And we're talking about one of the best players in the world here, but he's not starting, he's sat on the bench. So for me, I didn't get it, and the proof's in the pudding. They didn't get the result, and they brought him on with 20 minutes, 15 minutes to go, but it's not enough time to make an impact sometimes, because then the momentum's changed. It's going Everton's way.
No, I completely agree with that, and we'll just see what's going to happen going forward, because I said before the season that Man United are almost like a donut shape. I don't think they have enough. They need that centre mid who's going to put that work in, and they don't really have that at the moment. I think they're a team which are good in moments, like you touched upon, like Ronaldo scoring those winners, but he's not that workhorse, is he? He's there for the moments. And
not.
I think Man United they don't play for each other. They're not a very good team unit. They just play in moments, don't they?
Just very quickly, let's run through some players. So you look at the back, they've got Maguire, they've got Varane, they've got Shaw, they've got, Wan-Bissaka, they've got some really good defenders. Obviously, that's kind of a standard back four, right? Then you look up top, they've got players like Sancho. Bruno Fernandes, realistically, I know he's a midfielder and he's a ball player, but he scores a lot of goals. He gets into those positions and he's kind of an attacking midfielder. So you kind of signal him with an attacking player. Then you've got Ronaldo, obviously more of an attacking player. They've got Martial, they've got Greenwood, they've got these great prospects. Now we look at the midfield. So to signal what you're saying in terms of a donut, you've got Donny van der Beek, doesn't even get a game. McTominay, which I think sort of most teams in the top half might consider taking him, maybe not. Do you know what I mean? So he's not a player that I look at and go out. And then of course Fred, who goes hot and cold, can have a good performance 1 minute. It just isn't your classic midfielder. And then you've got other players in and around that. But the three players I've just mentioned, you haven't got your kind of box to box midfielder who is going to be getting in amongst it. You're not scared, are you?
No, not really.
Midfield. And that's exactly what you mean by donut, and I completely agree.
I know we spoke about it prior to the season, or when Ronaldo went to Man United, and we did speak about that, and we did say it would be an issue, and I think it's proved to be the case. I think they're very lucky to be in the position they are in the table right now.
Yeah, because I think there's a few games as well they have played. Obviously, Leeds, Newcastle, but even in the game against Newcastle when they won 4-1, Newcastle had the run of the game for a bit, didn't they? It's not like Man United are dominating these games completely. So it's just interesting. But moving on.
Moving on, I think there's only one place we should go to next, and that is Liverpool, Man City. Now, talk about talking points of this game as well. So many talking points. First of all, the game finished 2-2. Liverpool went ahead twice in this game, but Man City clawed it back. But for me, one of the main talking points, other than the fantastic Salah goal, which we'll talk about shortly, is should James Milner have been sent off for a second yellow card? Now, for me, it's a yellow card all day long. He stopped a counter-attack. It was a bad foul. He was no intention of trying to get to the ball, and yellow card all day long, and he should have been off at that point, and that would have been at 1-1 as well. So it would have completely changed the complexion of the game, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have done, and I completely agree. I mean, there's no way that you can show me that and it not be yellow. But we know the thing is, I keep talking to people about this. We don't actually know where these referees and where these people, in VAR land sort of thing, where their allegiances lie, because they've got to support somebody, especially if they're in and around the sport. I'm not saying that was the case this weekend, but you are starting to question it with some of the decisions that are made against certain teams.
Yeah.
You really are, and I'm noticing it more and more this season, especially, which is a weird thing to kind of say, but it really does seem like there are referees out there that are kind of picking on teams. So it's just interesting that side. But that was a definite yellow. Obviously, he was already on the yellow, so definitely sending off. Wasn't given. Lucky, and because obviously it was a yellow card call, it can't be looked at by the FA or anything like that. So Liverpool have got away with one there. Obviously, then Salah goes and scores this lovely goal. He obviously grabs it on the right hand side, as we see it cuts inside, going into the left, then cuts back in onto his stronger foot, plays it across the keeper, beats a couple of players before this, plays it across the keeper, almost far left post. A brilliant goal. I have to say, we were talking about before we came on air that we think it's a really, really good goal, but I think some of the pundits are kind of talking about it as like an all-time great goal. I'm not really sure it's at that standard. We're talking about the best of goals here. I'm not saying it wasn't a great goal. It is, but I think you were in agreement, weren't you, Will, that you weren't exactly. Sometimes it was blown out of proportion a little bit with how good it was.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic goal, and
Exactly,
it was
yeah.
goal of a weekend, and probably goal of a month as well. But goal of a season, that's yet to be determined, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah. I mean, it was, like I say, it was a very good goal, and obviously it was against very good opposition. So again, that stands for something. But, I thought Foden had a great game as well. Obviously get bagging a goal, getting an assist. So it was good to see some English talent there. We know how good Foden could potentially be and already is. So it was good to see him score. But it was a good game, actually. Great game for the neutral, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a top quality game, but Liverpool in that first half were lucky not to be losing it, because they were nowhere near the best, were they? But the second half they turned it on.
Yeah, they weren't, but I think Man City can do that to you. I mean, in the first half, if I'm going to be honest, obviously Man City had a couple of chances, but they didn't really make the pressure pay. And this is what I mean is, it's not a possession game. As much as, your possession start at the end, you could have 90% possession and still lose, and that's why we love the game. So,
Yeah.
it's not about how much you have the ball, it's what you do with it when you have it.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a question for you now, Joe. Should Man City have just bit the bullet and went for a striker? Because they signed Grealish when arguably they didn't really need Grealish. I feel like they needed a striker, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think the issue Man City had is the standard of striker that they need to fit in their system. Is heavy. So obviously, if they'd have signed Kane, they'd have had to sign him for 150 million. But what you're asking me is, so just using Kane as an example, because obviously he was one that was most talked about, would I have rather had Kane in my side than a Grealish? I think for Man City, not saying in general, I think both players are fantastic, and I think they both can can have different things. Like, for example, if as a Leicester fan, I think for what we need right now, I think Leicester would probably rather have Grealish than Kane. But if that was an option, obviously. But I think Man City probably needed Kane more than they needed Grealish. So I think they needed to put their eggs more in the Kane basket than they did the Grealish basket, if that made sense.
Yeah, I completely agree. We'll talk about Tottenham shortly, but Kane's, you can tell something's in the back of his mind. So I know he scored a hat-trick in the Europa Conference League coming on, and he scored a 20-minute hat-trick, but they were playing a molded.
Yeah, but I think for me though, he's not, when it comes to the Premier League games. Obviously, we know the standard's risen, and he's not. In fact, we'll go on to Spurs now. Then, so obviously we've talked about Liverpool and Man City. We'll go on to Spurs. Obviously, I know it's not connecting with the games, but I think Spurs obviously winning the game against Villa. It was a good win, but other players
much needed as well.
Much needed, obviously. Other players are having to come to the fore. Kane, like you say, just does not seem at it in the Premier League, does it at all? And he doesn't really look like scoring. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, you can tell he's a player really low confidence. Like, he had that one chance, but the Kane of old would have buried that chance, wouldn't he, when he went through? But he just takes that split second longer, and that split second's the one that's gonna get you, isn't it? You need to be ruthless, don't you?
The issue is obviously there's talk about form's temporary, class is permanent. So I have no doubt that Kane will end up in double digits in terms of goals this season. I have no doubt about that because of the type of striker he is. Once he bags a couple, he'll bag a hat trick in a game, or 2 hat tricks or whatever. Because it's like you say, it's confidence. But the issue being is, I think he doesn't want to be at Spurs, and I hate to say it for Spurs fans, but it just seems to me it's clear. Do you know what I mean? And yes, all right, he's bagging goals in the Europa Conference League, but like you say, I mean, a player of Kane's standard, it's like playing Sunday League for him. So obviously he's gonna bag goals in that, because you're not going to miss those opportunities when you're that class of striker and you've got that much freedom that these teams are giving in the Europa Conference League. Whereas, like I say, in the Prem, he just doesn't see. He seems a shell of his old self. Hopefully, he starts bagging in the goals. But I actually think when he plays for England, he's going to bag a couple of goals, because the Kane we see for England at the moment is better than the one we see for Spurs, in my opinion. I don't know whether you agree, but I think when he goes away to international duty, I think it's almost like a weight off his shoulders, because he likes playing for England. I don't think he likes playing for Spurs at the moment.
Yeah, I completely agree. He looks like he's happy, doesn't he?
Yeah, he looks unhappy. Obviously we know what was reported, but it's clear to see in his body language as well. He's not really with it. I mean, when they played Arsenal, obviously we missed the North London derby, but when they played Arsenal, obviously they collapsed a bit. And even his body language then, it was like, you're in a North London derby, you're the captain of Spurs kind of thing. You're giving it your all sort of thing, and you're not really. I just didn't really feel the energy from it in the North London derby. This is one of the biggest games of the season if you're a Spurs fan. So, if he's not picking himself up for that game, there's something wrong.
No, 100%. And I think we'll just see what happens going there. But a good positive result against a very good Aston Villa side. So I think Tottenham will get a lot of confidence, and I think they needed that result to hopefully kick on a bit more. And then that losing streak in the league.
Yeah, of course.
So let's move on to your boys then. 2-2. And we both said the same thing at half time when Leicester were 2-0 up. And that question was, how? How was that the case? And obviously that paid dividend in the second half where it was 2-2. But Leicester were very lucky to end that game with a point, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've just talked you through the game because obviously I watched it. I watched them religiously, as everyone who listens to this podcast knows. So, we started all right for the first 5 minutes. Vardy had a chance that realistically he should have put away. Then Palace just took a hold for like the next 30 minutes and were just relentless. I think Zaha had a chance, Edouard had a chance, Gallagher had a couple of chances, and if it wasn't for Schmeichel making a good couple of saves and last-ditch tackles that we were making, we could have been 2 or 3 down in that first sort of 35 minutes. And then I think it was a Danish defender who plays for Crystal Palace. Can't quite remember his name, so excuse me. But he kind of dallied on the ball. And then Iheanacho just took it off him, pressed. Iheanacho had a good game, by the way. He was doing his pressing, doing what you need to do as a striker. Pressed, got through, scored. And I'm thinking, I literally said the words "how" to myself. How we 1-0 up. Then, of course, we looked a bit better after that. A couple of minutes later, we get an opportunity. Tillemans plays a lovely little ball over the top for Barnes. Barnes runs through. And plays it across to Vardy. And in that position, one man's going to score, top of the goal scoring charts with Salah, by the way. Just wanted to throw that in there. He dispatches it. But coming into the half time, like you've just said, we were kind of messing each other. I was like, how are we 2-0 up? I was nervous. And I always thought, if they could get a first half goal. Got to about 60 minutes, and I'm thinking, what, yes, they've had a couple of chances. I think Edward hit the bar. I think Gallagher might have hit the post as well. Do you know what I mean? The relentlessness of Crystal Palace was still coming. But where the game changed for me was substitutions. So we brought on Samer for Chowdhury. Chowdhury was having a great game. He was the only one in the midfield that was looking up for it. I know that he's not one that's used. Obviously, we've got an injury to Ndidi now, which is not helping. He's going to be out for 6 or 7 matches, apparently. But so he was in there. He was doing really well. Got taken off around 60 minutes. Samer came on. Then we immediately dropped a goal. I think they made a substitution at the same time. So their new boy who played for Reading on loan last season, I think his name's Elise. He got a bit lucky with the rebound, but I think Palace at this point deserve the luck. Pushed it home. Then, of course, they make a substitution with Jeffrey Schlupp. Leicester old boy, love the guy, don't begrudge him for scoring. The header's kind of flicking out. Nobody's kind of getting the ball away. And then the header comes in for Jeffrey Schlupp, who slots it away. It's 2-2. And then that was about sort of 65, 66 minutes. And then I'm thinking, we've just got to hold on for a 2-2 draw. And we did in the end. But Palace, I think, in the meantime, had hit the post. I think Jeffrey Schlupp flashed wide with a header. I really don't know how we drew this game. Forget losing. Like all Leicester fans are like, oh, we're disappointed because we dropped a 2-0 lead. We shouldn't have had the 2-0 lead in the first place. Like, we were just very, very lucky. I think the difference between Leicester and Crystal Palace was Leicester have 2 informed strikers that can take the chances when they've got them. We had 2 chances to break forward. We scored 2 goals. Fair play to them. They're in good form. I've got no problems with the strikers at the moment. But our defence, my God, all over the place at the back. I mean, Vestergaard singing his praises when we signed him, but he's not looking at it. I think us losing Evans and Fofana is proving to be very costly for us at the moment, and especially now with Ndidi out the side, it's gonna take its toll, I think, and we're going to be struggling. And I'm talking struggling in terms of challenging for the top 8. I don't think we'll struggle in terms of relegation, but you never know in this league, and we've got to sort it out and quick.
Yeah, so let's look at it in perspective. You have 8 points from 7 games. So you're 13th in the table at the moment. So I think mid-table is probably where you'll finish if you carry on in the kind of form that you are. But so let's hope that you actually pick up a few wins and such, and just get that confidence.
We've not, and this is a genuine statement here. We've played 9 games, including the Europa League. We've not played well in any of them. We've not played well in any of them. You wouldn't say, oh, that was a complete performance. Against Wolves, we got lucky. We won 1-0. Against Norwich, we were lucky. We won 2-1. Norwich could have quite easily have drawn or beat us in that game, same as Wolves. Because if you remember, Traore had 2 one-on-one opportunities in that game. So realistically, we've not had a good performance. I'm not happy with the substitutions that the manager's making. We brought on, and again, no disrespect to Albrighton. Albrighton is my favourite player, but we brought on Albrighton when it was 2-2. We've got Daka sitting on the bench for 23 million. I understand that you're saying that he's not whatever Brendan's seen in training, but you've got another striker sat on the bench. Why aren't you why aren't you trying to go for it? You know, at the end of the day, I know we got the draw in the end, but Leicester need to be winning at Crystal Palace, and that's no disrespect to Crystal Palace, but what we've seen over the last couple of seasons, and if we want to keep building, we need to beat teams like Crystal Palace. It's just a fact.
Yeah,
Not saying we deserve to. I'm just saying with the standard that the club and as fans now we have now, we need to beat teams like Crystal Palace. We didn't deserve to win that game. We shouldn't have been anywhere near them. But you know, going into the game, realistically, you need to win.
yeah. I've got a question for you now, Joe. Do you think, and I want a yes or no or maybe answer, do you think Brendan Rodgers could be in trouble if it carries on for a few more
Oh
games?
yeah, massively. I think that's not even a difficult yes. I'm not saying that I'm Brendan Rodgers out. I think he's done a lot for the club. He's done a great job. But the way our owners operate, the next 5 games we've got Brentford, we've got United, we've got Brentford. I think we've got Brighton in the Carabao Cup. Obviously we've got Europa League as well. I think we've got Moscow for one of those games, and we've also got I can't quite remember, but we've got some very difficult games coming up, especially with how
Yeah,
Brentford have started.
yeah. Well,
So
let's touch upon Brentford now, shall we?
yeah,
Because they're in really, really good form. Obviously, the week before they drew 3-3 with Liverpool, which was a cracker. It could have been any scoreline at the end of that. And then they bounced back from that with a 2-1 win, last-minute winner for Brentford against a really, really good West Ham side. What did you make of it, Jay?
just very a very good, resolute performance. You know, they're never out of it, are they? They're attacking, they go for it. Obviously, last minute winner as well, so it's going to boost their confidence. They've got some very, very good players. You know, the front two. The only thing I would worry about for Brentford is if they lose one of those front two, they might struggle to replace them. And the reason I say that is because obviously Tony and Milerbo, they are they're almost psychic. They read each other very well. If you've watched any of the games this season, they're very much intertwined, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure.
They play off each other. So obviously they play very well. It's kind of part of the game plan. Obviously Tony's got the strength, the power, the speed, and then obviously Malherbe plays off him. They play a very, very good system in that way. Midfield's very resolute, so I think they'll be absolutely fine, as we both said at the start of the season. But I think maybe they could push on and potentially, you know, you never know, squeeze into that Europa League. I mean, again, that's me kind of making a bit of a shock statement because it's a
Yeah.
long season. But
They've started really, really well now. They're 7th place with 12 points. It's all very, very tight up. They're only 4 points off the top, which is so bizarre, but only 7 points. Sorry, 7 games into the season. But I think it's looking really, really good for Brentford. So
it's a
let's see
weird one,
how
isn't it?
that carries on, eh?
Because I'm gonna ask you this question now. They're not giving me vibes of kind of dying away. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if the way they play, I don't expect them to change. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, you think, oh, you know, it could be just new team coming up. But I think with the system that they've got, we've said from last season, they'll be a very, very good Premier League team. And it seems to be proving that way. So do you think they'll die off, or do you think they can kind of stay where they are, or even
I mean,
push further on?
obviously, all depending on staying injury free, because all of the consistent teams have like a good injury record, like little injuries and such. So I think that'll be very, very important for them. But I don't see why that shouldn't be the case. That they continue in the vein what they started, because they just have the confidence and the ability. And I think Thomas Frank is doing a fantastic job for for Brentford, and I think times are looking up for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
Move on to Burnley Norwich now. This is a bit of a drab 0-0, but I think Norwich will probably be happy with getting the first point on the board after this game. What did you think of that, Jay?
I'm not surprised. I think these two teams are in trouble. I think you know they obviously got the first point, but I think if we'd have done our predictions, I think 0-0 might have been might have come up for either one of us. So I'm not really surprised. The only game really that I've seen Burnley and they've looked half decent, of course, is against my team. But I think that both these teams, as I've put them both in my bottom three to finish the season, I'm not really surprised at this result. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Burnley didn't really look at the races either. I think they're both in the relegation places, and I think they're both been in trouble come the end of the season, if I'm being honest. Talk about another team who might be in a bit of trouble. Southampton, surprisingly, they're just hovering above the relegation zone with just 4 points after losing 3-1 to Chelsea. Now, this game all changed after Ward-Prowse getting sent off because it was 1-1 at that point when Ward-Prowse scored penalty in the 61st minute, and then he got a straight red card. And for me, it was a clear red card. I don't know about you, but after that, it completely changed the game and finished 3-1 Chelsea in the end. What did you think of it, Jay?
Yeah, no, I agree. I personally think that the red carpet, I know it's easy. Well, it's not easy to say, but you're never going to know. But I think Chelsea might have gone on to win this anyway, just because of obviously they were exhibiting more possession before the sending off, and they were looking to kind of to switch gears. But obviously the sending off helped and just made it a lot easier for Chelsea. 3-1, they needed that result obviously after the loss to Man City the weekend prior. So, it was a good result for them. I think Southampton I think I've said at the start of the season that they will struggle a bit. But I think they've potentially got enough to kind of steady the ship and stay up. They've got some good young talent again, as Southampton usually do.
Yeah, 100%. So I quite like Southampton, so let's hope they pick up a bit of form going on there.
Yeah.
Talk about two teams in quite bad form. Leeds versus Watford. Now, Leeds ended up winning this 1-0. Watford just didn't look at the races at all, and their manager, a few days after this game, was sacked. What do you make of a whole debacle then, Joe?
Not surprised. I mean, is it really a debacle? I mean, it's just standard for Watford, isn't it? We're used to them having like 3 managers a season, especially in the Premier League. So
yeah,
not really surprised. In fact, you'd probably say more surprising if they'd have kept him after 10 games. So realistically, it's not really a shock. Obviously, Claudio Ranieri is coming into the game. I just want to say, obviously, massive affiliation to the club, and I hope Watford do well now because I obviously love Claudio for what he did for Leicester. And let's hope he can do a good job, but I can't see him lasting the season just because of how Watford work. So
yeah, it's kind of like just it's walking into trouble, that's for sure. And we'll just see how it goes on. But on a Leeds perspective, you'll be happy to get your first points on the board.
Well,
your first win on the board, I should say.
First win on the board, yeah.
Yeah, so
I think it's good, but I think maybe it's just a sign that the fact that they did struggle to beat a poor Watford side on the day. It's a sign that maybe they are going to struggle a bit more than we thought this season.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I think they'll be safe, but I think we need to up the game a bit more. But a good win for Leeds against quite a strong Watford side. They've got some good quality players on their day, so a good win for Leeds in the end. Moving on to Wolves Newcastle. Now it was that new signing for Wolves again, He-Chan. How much of a revelation has he been for Wolves? Because
they needed someone to be a revelation, didn't they? Because before he's come in, they've not really done much. So they've got the win. He looks like a very good, tidy, very good, speedy player, and obviously he can get a goal or two, as he did. He got 2 goals on Saturday. So yeah, good result for them. Who were they playing again? Sorry, literally
against Newcastle. So Newcastle are in a bit of trouble at the moment.
Yeah, but we all thought they would do, and I think it's only a matter of time before Newcastle do get relegated if they don't sort it out. Because you can't, the way their model works, you can't stay up in the Premier League and not kind of aspire to kind of strengthen the team or do anything with it. If you stay stagnant, you're gonna keep falling down.
Yeah, and I know
How it works.
Newcastle fans are calling for Steve Bruce's head, but I think no matter who was in charge, no one's gonna like. I don't think. I think any manager would struggle in that situation.
Yeah,
He was hated from the offset from a Newcastle fan, so I feel sorry for him in a way.
Yeah, I do. And realistically, who's gonna want to come to Newcastle, but who is gonna come to Newcastle and improve them? I don't think anybody is. I think that you've got to look at the players. I don't look at Newcastle and go, "Oh, do you know what? I'm scared of them." I don't.
Yeah.
They've got St Maximin, who arguably is their best player, but even he, you go, right, okay, well, if he's their best player, just stay on him. And then of course you've got Almiron, who's fairly decent, but other than that, you look at their team and you go, I'm not really looking at anybody or anything that kind of suggests to me that they're going to do anything of noteworthy. Really, I don't know whether you agree with that, but the two players I've just mentioned, and then the rest of it is just kind of your average to half decent player, really.
No, I completely agree, and I think they'll be in a bit of trouble come the end of the season as well. There's a lot of teams around that similar area at the moment, isn't there? So, but the season's only young, isn't it? It's only about a quarter of the way through, if that, not even that yet. So I think there's still time for teams to turn it around. We've seen it in the past. Teams go hot and cold, don't they? So we'll see what happens.
Realistically, a lot of teams don't even. A lot of fans don't even look at the table until after 10 games has gone. So we'll not even reach that point yet. So I don't think it's any team can lift themselves up. Even Norwich, if they went on a streak now of 2-3 games win,
They'll be
right.
mid-table.
Yeah, well, they'll be right out of it. So, do you know what I mean? It's not the end of the world. A bad start, like I was saying to somebody earlier, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So,
Yeah, I completely agree. And talking of our final game, Brighton versus Arsenal. Now, Arsenal were in confident mood after beating Spurs 3-1 in the North London derby, but they were so lucky not to lose this game. It finished 0-0, but Brighton were all over Arsenal, and I don't know how they didn't score. It was the Brighton of last season, wasn't it, in terms of putting it away?
I mean, if you could liken a game to sort of the Leicester City Crystal Palace, I think this one was the closest one. I don't think it was as bad, unfortunately. But I think, Arsenal were very, very, very lucky, and I think it was a bit of a reality check for those Arsenal fans, just to kind of make them realise where they are actually at still.
For sure.
They've won the last 3 games against what I would consider a poor Spurs side. Obviously getting a 1-0 win against Burnley and Norwich. So realistically, they've not played anyone of any realistic note, obviously other than Tottenham, but even they were very, very poor on the day. So, I think Brighton will be kicking themselves. I think Brighton will be looking at it and going, I don't know how we didn't win this game. I think it's an interesting one.
100%. And if Brighton had won that game, they would have been joint first on points and second in goal difference. So I think Brighton having a really, really good start, but just the old thing of scoring goals. I know they have done it this season, but you don't want it to creep back in, do you, Joe?
No, of course you don't. But I think the issue, because some of the Arsenal fans obviously was looking on kind of the reaction and stuff. Some of the Arsenal fans were saying, "Oh, it was a good defensive performance." I don't even think it was that. I think Brighton had the chances to win the game. Arsenal had a couple of opportunities to have a couple of shots, but there wasn't anything of note there. But we know in attacking wise, they're quite poor at the moment. Obviously, Aubameyang's kind of a shell of the player that he has been for 1.5 seasons now, so we know he's not going to bang him in every week. Whereas, I think Brighton will be kicking themselves. Obviously, Mopey had a couple of opportunities. I have to say, I can't remember his name, but their new left back, who just seems to be kind of dominating. You know, he seemed very good. I think they bought him from Granada from Spain, but he seems very good. Brighton's left back, that is.
Yeah,
You know, he was controlling the game. Was my man of the match, to be fair. But yeah, Brighton will be kicking themselves for sure.
100%. And on that note, that wraps up all of our games for this week, and that leads very nicely into an international break. So I think we're going to have a break next week, aren't we, Joe? But before that, we need to have a Joe Ask, Will Tell. So over to you, Joe.
Okay, so my question to you this week is, and it's obviously kind of coinciding with the Watford managerial kind of merry-go-round. You know, that is it up in London. What do you think that modern football now, they don't give enough managers enough time, or do you think that it is just the way it is now with modern football? You know, obviously we're going to go sort of 20, 30 years ago. Of course, it'd be unthinkable to sack a manager after 10 games, but we're not 30 years ago now. Do you just think that's the way football is? Because obviously, going on to the question that you asked me earlier, obviously you were talking about, do you think Brendan Rodgers will be under pressure? And my answer was, of course, yes, because with the way that, you know, chairmans work now, with the way clubs work, if you have a poor run of, I'd say 5 to 10 games now, your job's under question, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you know the main reason that is that it's not even about league position really. It's about financial stability and such. People need to stay in the league, don't they? They need to finish higher up so they get more money come the end of the season. And I think that's all it's down to. I think football fans and chairman and everyone are fickle. Have a look at Ron Rary, for example. He won the Premier League with Leicester. He didn't even make the season afterwards, did he? So it's completely crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And obviously we'd started the next season poorly. Just like I say, just a question on that as well. Obviously talking about managers, obviously we've got your opinion on it. You know, obviously it's a bit. Obviously you had a managerial change down at the City ground, being a Forest fan. I bet you're delighted with how it's kind of turning out so far, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. I think the teams are playing with so much more confidence. The attacking players are allowed to have so much more freedom, and you can tell they're enjoying the football a lot more now. And I think it was probably the right time for Houghton to go, and I think it's just paying difference. So I'm very, very happy.
I've said this to you before. One last point before we do go. I've said this to you before. I think it just goes to show when you do play attacking football with certain types of players. I think what was evident under Houghton is he didn't really have a gear system to go into in terms of. I don't think your team under him could go up gears, could they? It was kind of you had a very set out game plan to defend, you know, and you weren't doing that very well. But you would allow pressure to come onto you. Whereas I think what Cooper seems to have done, from what I've seen, is you just play with more attacking validity in the side, which seems to be paying dividends.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm just excited to see what happens. I think the international break probably came at the right and wrong time. The right time because they'll have more time to gel with the players, but the wrong time because we have all this confidence now winning our last few games. I think I'm just a lot happier being a Forest fan at the moment. There's a lot happier around the place.
Yeah, of course, for definite, and I'm sure. Well, I think now, obviously, you're out of the relegation zone now, aren't you? It's only taken Cooper 3 games. He's got 7 points out of a possible 9, so that shows you how much you've kind of improved under him already.
Yeah,
and
100%.
you had 1 point out of I think 6 games. Did you? I think.
Yeah, something like that.
So and that 1 point came against Derby, which you'd have expected it to. But yeah, so it's just a very, very interesting one.
Yeah, very, very happy.
Anyway, just to finish off, like Will said, we won't be there for the international break. Obviously, England are going into play 3 games. I think Hungary, Andorra, and I want to say San Marino. I might be wrong on there, but it's 3 games you'd expect England to win, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, and let's just hope we get those wins, eh?
Yeah, let's hope we do. We won't be back next week, but we'll be back the week after. Hopefully, you're all nicely recovered, Will, because I know you've had a bit of a testing time, so that's why we've not been as prominent with the podcast. But hopefully, you're fighting fit the next time we record.
Well, let's hope so, eh?
Yeah. All right, and guys, thanks again, and thank you to Will as well for